The second my father laughed at my ring, something cracked, not loud, not dramatic, just sharp enough to hurt. "Engaged," he said, grinning wide so everyone could see it. "Don't pretend. Who would ever want to marry you?" People laughed. Plates clinked. Someone actually snorted. I stood there in uniform slacks and borrowed patience, smiling like I'd been trained to do under pressure. 3 minutes later, a car door shut in the driveway, and the man my father least wanted to see walked through the gate, looked me in the eye and said, "I'm her fiancé." I knew I'd made a mistake the second I stepped into my parents' backyard. Not because of the folding chairs lined up like they were waiting for a town hall meeting, not because of the cheap Bluetooth speaker blasting old summer hits like it was legally required at family gatherings. Not even because my aunt was already squinting at me and saying, "You look tired," the way people say it when they mean something else. It was the smell. Burgers, lighter fluid, warm potato salad, and that faint chemical tang of sunscreen melting into skin. The smell of pretending everything was normal. I hadn't been home in months. Not really. Just quick visits, fly in, fly out, keep it clean. I'd told myself this was different. A simple family cookout, nothing formal, nothing loaded. That was my first mistake. My mom spotted me immediately and waved like she was greeting a camera. She hugged me fast, stiff like a photo op, then stepped back and looked me over from boots to collarbone. "You look thin," she said. "I'm fine," I replied automatically, because that's what you say when you're in the military and not interested in unpacking your life next to a tray of deviled eggs. My dad stood near the cooler, one hand resting on the lid like staying close to ice was a personality trait. He didn't come over right away. He never does. He likes to make entrances by not making them. Relatives I barely recognized smiled and nodded. Cousins I hadn't seen since high school glanced at me like they were trying to remember who I used to be before I became the difficult one. Someone asked how work was. Someone else asked if I was still doing the military thing. I nodded. I smiled. I kept my voice even. Years of training had taught me how to stand in uncomfortable spaces without showing it on my face. What it hadn't taught me was how to stand in front of my own family while they waited for me to fail. I wasn't planning on announcing anything that day. I didn't bring a speech. I didn't bring a ring light or a dramatic reveal. I just had a ring on my left hand, the kind you wear when something in your life is solid and quiet and real. I should have kept my hand down. My cousin Melissa noticed first. Her eyes flicked to my fingers, then back to my face. She smiled, small, cautious. A warning smile. Too late. My father finally turned. His eyes dropped straight to my hand like they'd been magnetized. "Well, look at that," he said loud enough for half the yard to hear. "What's this supposed to be?" I felt the familiar tightening in my chest. The kind that comes right before impact. "It's a ring," I said. He laughed. A big laugh. A confident laugh. The kind of laugh that invites others to join in so they don't feel left out. "Don't tell me you're engaged," he said, shaking his head. "Come on, don't pretend. Who would want to marry you?" For half a second the yard went quiet. Then someone laughed. Then another. Not cruel laughter, not exactly. More like nervous relief. Thank God he said it first. I stood there with the sun in my eyes and my hands at my sides, feeling every pair of them looking at me, waiting to see what I'd do, waiting to see if I'd cry, or snap, or finally prove them right. My mother didn't look at me, she looked at my father. "Don't start," she said, not to him but somehow to me. "Don't start, don't make it awkward, don't ruin the day." I swallowed, I tasted metal. "I didn't say anything," I replied quietly. My father smirked like that was confirmation. "I'm just being honest. You've always had a strong personality." There it was. The family euphemism. Strong, difficult, too much. I glanced around. Plates suddenly became fascinating. A few people stared at the grass. One of my cousins shifted like she might say something, then thought better of it. I'd been deployed into situations with less tension than that backyard. I wanted to leave. I wanted to turn around and walk back to my car and never explain myself again. But I didn't. I stood there. Because walking away always gets rewritten later as weakness. So I stayed. My dad leaned back against the cooler, crossing his arms. So he said, drawing it out, "Where's this imaginary fiancé of yours?" held up at the toy store. A couple of people chuckled. Someone muttered, "Jesus." My face stayed calm. Inside, something settled. Not anger, not hurt. Recognition. This wasn't a joke. This was a move. I looked down at my ring. It wasn't flashy. No oversized diamond screaming for attention. It was simple, clean. The kind of ring someone buys when they actually know you. My father didn't like that. I could tell by the way his smile tightened. He needed it to be fake. He needed the story to stay intact. "Relax," he added, waving a hand. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking." That's the thing about families like mine. Someone always volunteers to say the quiet part out loud, then pretends they did you a favor. I felt a presence shift behind me. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a subtle change in the air, like when the wind turns before a storm. A car door closed in the driveway. I heard footsteps on gravel. Before I could turn, a voice behind me said, calm and warm, "Sorry I'm late." Traffic was rough. I knew that voice. Knew it the way you know something that feels like home. I turned. He was standing there in the side gate sleeves rolled up, holding a small bakery box like it mattered. He smiled at me first. Always me first. "You okay?" he asked softly. I nodded once. Then he looked up and extended his hand. "I'm Daniel," he said. "I'm her fiancé." The silence that followed wasn't polite. It was stunned. And when I looked back at my father, his face had gone pale in a way I'd never seen before. My father's laugh cut off mid-breath like someone had pulled the plug on it. For a second, no one moved. Not my mother. Not my aunts. Not the cousins who had just been laughing a little too hard. The backyard froze in that awkward half-beat where everyone knows something has shifted, but no one wants to be the first to acknowledge it. Daniel stood next to me like he belonged there, not puffed up, not defensive, just steady. The bakery box in his hands looked almost comically normal for the moment he'd walked into. My father stared at him. Not in the vague, polite way you look at a stranger, in the sharp, searching way you look at someone you're trying to place. His eyes narrowed slightly, like he was rifling through a mental filing cabinet and not liking what he was finding. "Your fiancé," my mother said, finally blinking as if the word itself needed time to buffer. Daniel nodded. "Yes, ma'am." He said it politely, calmly, the way someone does when they don't feel the need to prove anything. My father cleared his throat. Once. Then again. "Daniel," he repeated slowly, like saying the name out loud might jog something loose. "And you are—" Daniel offered his hand. "Daniel Reyes." That did it. I watched the recognition land behind my father's eyes in real time. It wasn't dramatic. No gasp, no step back. Just a subtle tightening around his mouth, a flicker of something that looked an awful lot like calculation. Because my father didn't know Daniel from social media. He didn't know him from me. He knew him from reputation. Daniel had spoken at a veterans fundraiser my father attended last year. He'd been introduced as a former officer who now worked in compliance and risk oversight for government contractors. The kind of job that doesn't make headlines but makes problems very real for people who cut corners. My father had bragged about shaking his hand afterward. Now that same hand was extended to him. My father hesitated half a beat too long before taking it. "Good to meet you," he said, his voice suddenly lower, flatter. Daniel smiled, likewise. The silence broke in fragments. Someone laughed too loudly. Someone else said, "Well, isn't this a small world?" My aunt leaned in to whisper something to my mom. The Bluetooth speaker kept playing like it had no idea anything important had just happened. I stood there feeling the heat of the sun on my shoulders, and for the first time all afternoon, I wasn't the one being evaluated. My father glanced at me, then back at Daniel, then at my ring. So he said, forcing a chuckle that didn't quite work, "This is real." Daniel didn't answer for me. He looked at me instead, eyebrows lifting just slightly, giving me the space to speak if I wanted it. "Yes," I said, "it is." My mother smiled, tight, careful. "Why didn't you tell us?" I looked at her. "You didn't ask." That landed harder than anything I could have shouted. Her mouth opened, then closed again. "In my family, you're not supposed to say things like that. You're supposed to hint, soften. Make sure no one feels uncomfortable except you." My father shifted his weight. "Well, congratulations," he said, clapping his hands once like he was closing a topic. "You could have saved us the surprise." Daniel tilted his head slightly. She didn't think it was something she needed to defend. The word defend hung there quiet but sharp. My father's jaw tightened. No one said anything about defending. Daniel didn't argue, he just nodded. Of course. That was the thing about Daniel. He didn't rise to bait. He didn't need to win the moment. He let people show themselves. My cousin Melissa stepped in, bless her. "Hi, I'm Melissa," she said, smiling genuinely at Daniel. "I've heard a lot about you." Daniel shook her hand. "Nice to finally meet you." Finally. The word made my mother flinch. My father tried again. "So what do you do now, Daniel?" Daniel answered smoothly. "I oversee compliance and internal risk assessments. Mostly contracts, making sure people follow the rules they agreed to." My father nodded too quickly. "Important work." "It can be," Daniel replied. I felt something shift behind my ribs. Not relief, not triumph. Something steadier. Validation, maybe. Or the simple comfort of not being alone in the line of fire. My father's eyes flicked around the yard. He could feel it. The way the room yard whatever had tilted. He was no longer the unquestioned authority. He was just another man standing next to a cooler, hoping no one noticed the sweat on his collar. My mother clapped her hands. "Okay, let's eat before everything gets cold." Food, the universal reset button. People moved toward the tables, grateful for an excuse. Conversations restarted in low, careful tones. Daniel leaned in slightly. "You good?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah." It wasn't a lie, not completely. My father didn't join the line right away. He watched us instead. Watched the way Daniel stayed close, not possessive, just present. Watched the way I didn't fold. When he finally did approach, it was with a practiced smile. "Daniel," he said, "you should try the burgers. Family recipe." Daniel smiled politely. "I'd love to." My father leaned in closer to me as we waited. "We'll talk later," he said under his breath. Privately. There it was, the warning disguised as concern. I met his gaze. Okay. But something in my tone must have tipped him off, because his smile faltered just for a second. He didn't like that he no longer controlled the story. As we ate, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my mother, even though she was 3 feet away. "We need to talk after." I stared at the screen, then slid the phone back into my pocket without replying. Daniel noticed. He always does. "Later," he murmured, not a question. "Later," I confirmed. Across the yard, my father was laughing again. Louder this time. Too loud. The kind of laugh people use when they're trying to reclaim territory. I watched him from the corner of my eye and felt the familiar pressure building, because I knew what came next. The public part was over. Now came the reckoning behind closed doors. My father waited exactly 3 minutes after people started eating before he made his move. That's how he's always done it. Long enough for the shock to fade, short enough that no one's distracted yet. He believes timing is a form of intelligence. He caught me near the back door where the noise dipped just enough to feel private. My mother hovered a few steps away, pretending to rearrange napkins that didn't need rearranging. "So," he said, folding his arms, "you want to explain what that was?" I looked at him, really looked at him. The sun had carved deeper lines into his face over the years, but the expression was the same one I'd grown up with. The look that said he was already convinced he was right, and just needed me to admit it. "What do you mean?" I asked. He scoffed. "You show up with a ring, don't say a word, let everyone think you're making things up, then you bring him." Him, not Daniel, not my fiancé, just him. "I didn't bring him to make a point," I said. "He came because he was invited." By who? My father snapped. "By me." That landed badly. My mother stepped in immediately. "Your father just means it caught us off guard." I didn't take my eyes off him, so did the comment about no one wanting to marry me. He waved that off. "Don't be dramatic, I was joking." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because it was so familiar. "You were laughing," I said. Everyone else followed. My father leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You embarrassed me." There it was, the real offense. "I embarrassed you," I repeated. "Yes," he said sharply, "in front of my family, my friends." I glanced toward the yard where Daniel was standing with my cousin, listening patiently to a story he'd probably already heard twice. He looked comfortable, like he wasn't bracing for impact. I didn't do anything I said evenly, you did. My father's jaw clenched. You could have told us. You could have handled this like an adult. I am handling it like an adult. No, he snapped. You're handling it like you always do, acting superior, acting like you're better than everyone because you wear a uniform. That one hit, but not the way he wanted it to. I wear a uniform because I earned it, I said. And I don't bring it up. You do. My mother hissed my name quietly, a warning. Don't push him, don't make this worse. I felt that old instinct tug at me. The one that tells you to back down, smooth it over, apologize even when you didn't start the fire. I didn't. My father exhaled through his nose. You think you're so independent, he said. But you still need us. I met his eyes. No, I said, I don't. That was the moment his expression changed. Not anger, something colder. We'll see, he said. He turned away before I could respond, calling over his shoulder. Your mother and I will talk to you later. Not with you, to you. I stood there for a second, letting the noise of the party wash back over me. Someone laughed. Someone dropped a plate. The speaker switched songs. Daniel appeared beside me like he'd sensed the shift. You okay? He asked quietly. I nodded. He's not done. Daniel glanced toward the cooler where my father had resumed his post like nothing had happened. I figured. We didn't talk about it then. We ate. We smiled when required. We played our parts. Because sometimes survival looks like patience. But I noticed things. The way my father kept glancing at my hand. The way he asked Daniel just enough questions to assert himself, but not enough to reveal how uneasy he was. The way my mother watched me like she was waiting for me to explode so she could justify everything. When it was finally time to leave, my father hugged me stiffly. We'll talk, he repeated. I drove away with Daniel beside me, the house shrinking in the rearview mirror. You don't have to go back, he said gently. I know, I replied. I didn't say what I was thinking, that I'd been going back my whole life, that every visit was just another version of the same test. That night my phone buzzed nonstop. Texts from my mother, from an aunt, from a cousin I barely spoke to. You could have handled that differently. Your dad didn't mean it like that. He was just surprised. I didn't respond. At 11:47 p.m., an email came in from my mortgage lender. Subject action required pre-approval review. My stomach dropped before I even opened it. Daniel watched my face change. What is it? I handed him the phone. He read it once, then again. That's odd, he said carefully. I know, I replied. The email was polite, neutral, the kind of language that pretends not to panic you while absolutely doing so. An item has appeared on your credit report that requires clarification before we can proceed. I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart steady but heavy, not racing, calculating. I didn't open anything I said. I haven't missed a payment. I've been careful. Daniel nodded. I know. I logged into my credit monitoring app. Green check marks loaded one by one. Then read. A small retail account, low limit, opened months ago. My name, my social security number, my parents' address. That's not mine, I said quietly. Daniel leaned closer. Are you sure? I'm sure. I stared at the screen, a cold recognition settling in my chest. My mail still went to their house, it always had. Deployments, moves, it was easier. It was a mistake. I felt something shift inside me then. Not panic, not fear. Clarity. This isn't an accident, I said. Daniel looked at me. You think your dad? I think someone in that house decided my life was theirs to manage. I took a screenshot, then another. I created a new folder on my phone and named it simply Family. Daniel didn't say anything. He didn't need to. We both knew this wasn't over. It was just moving into a different phase. I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was spiraling or replaying my father's words on a loop. I'd done that years ago. This was different. This was the kind of alertness you get when something stops being emotional and starts being operational. By sunrise, I was already dressed, coffee in hand, uniform pressed the way muscle memory does without asking permission. The world outside my apartment felt calm in a way my parents' backyard never had. Orderly, predictable. Nobody here cared about my ring, or my father, or what anyone thought of me. They cared whether I showed up on time and did my job. And I did. The day moved in clean blocks, briefings, emails, checklists, the kind of rhythm that steadies you. Around mid-morning my phone buzzed again, a group text this time. New thread. Mom, we need to talk tonight. Dad, answer your mother. Aunt Linda, why did you leave like that? I stared at the screen, felt the familiar pressure start to build, then did something I'd never done before. I muted the entire thread. Not dramatically, no announcement, just silence. Daniel texted a little later. How's your morning? I typed fine, deleted it, then wrote something's off with my credit. I'm handling it. He replied almost immediately, I'm here if you need me. I appreciated that he didn't ask questions yet. He knew better. That afternoon I sat in my car before driving home and pulled up my credit reports directly. Not the summarized app, the full documents, TransUnion, Experian, Equifax. Same account, same balance, same address, and a detail that made my jaw tighten. Authorized contact listed. I didn't recognize the number at first. Then my brain caught up. My father's. I didn't react right away. No yelling, no shaking hands, just a slow, steady inhale through my nose. This wasn't carelessness, this wasn't confusion. This was access. I drove home on autopilot. Daniel was already there when I arrived, sitting at my small kitchen table with his laptop open. He looked up as soon as he saw my face. You found something, he said. I handed him my phone. He scanned the screen once, then again. His expression didn't explode, it focused. That's your father's number, he said quietly. Yes. He closed the laptop halfway. Okay, then we stop guessing. I nodded. Document, lock it down, dispute. Daniel almost smiled, exactly. I froze my credit first, all 3 bureaus, PIN set, confirmation emails saved. Then I initiated the dispute process. No accusations, no family narrative, just facts. This account was opened without my authorization. Correspondence appears to have been sent to an address I no longer reside at. Submit. Only after that did I check my phone again. 5 missed calls from my mother. A voicemail from my father. I didn't listen to it yet. Instead I got a text. Mom, your dad says you're accusing him of something. This is getting ridiculous. I stared at the word accusing and felt a bitter laugh bubble up. I hadn't accused anyone. I'd filed paperwork. That scared them more than any confrontation ever could. Daniel watched me. They're feeling pressure. They should, I replied. An hour later my phone rang again, this time an unknown number. I answered. Hi, is this a woman? Paused, checking her notes. Is this Emily Carter? Yes. This is Dana from HR, from Daniel's office. My heart didn't race, it settled. Daniel's eyes met mine. He gestured for speaker. I put it on. You're not in trouble, Dana continued quickly. We received a concern and are doing a routine review. Daniel leaned forward. Dana, this is Daniel. I'm here. Thank you, she said. We're just confirming details. Emily, did you meet Daniel through his workplace? No. Did your father or any family member have involvement in Daniel's professional role? No. There was a brief pause, the sound of typing. Okay, Dana said carefully. We've also received additional communications from the same individual. We're reviewing those as well. Daniel's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. When the call ended, the apartment felt quiet in a heavier way. She escalated, I said. Daniel nodded and crossed a line. My phone buzzed immediately. Dad, you're making this a lot bigger than it needs to be. I finally listened to his voicemail. His voice was calm, reasonable, almost hurt. I was just trying to help. You always jump to conclusions. Help, that word again, the family's favorite disguise. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my notes app and started a list. Dates, times, messages, calls, everything. Daniel watched me, then said softly, You don't have to manage this alone. I know, I replied, but I'm done letting it slide. That night my mother called. I declined. Then my father. Declined. Then a video call request. Declined. Finally, a text from my mother that landed like a threat. If you don't fix this, you're going to tear this family apart. I set the phone face down on the table. Daniel reached over and squeezed my hand. You didn't break it. I exhaled slowly. No, I hadn't. I'd just stopped covering for it. And I knew with absolute certainty that the next move wouldn't be subtle. The confirmation email from the credit bureau came in at 6:12 a.m. I was already awake, lying on my back, staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks like they might rearrange themselves into answers if I looked long enough. Dispute received, investigation initiated. I didn't feel relief. Relief comes when something ends. This wasn't ending, it was clarifying. Daniel was still asleep, one arm thrown across the pillow like he'd claimed the space without meaning to. I watched his chest rise and fall for a moment, then quietly slid out of bed and padded into the kitchen. The apartment was silent in that early morning way that feels honest. No music, no voices trying to control the narrative. I opened my laptop and pulled up the retailer account details again. This time I went deeper. Not summaries, original records. It took a few clicks before I found what I was looking for. Account application PDF attached. I opened it. My name sat neatly at the top. Correct spelling, correct date of birth. My social security number masked but unmistakably mine. The address listed wasn't my apartment. It wasn't even my last duty station. It was my parents' house. My jaw tightened, but my hand stayed steady. Panic doesn't help when you're reading fine print. Then I scrolled. There it was. Authorized contact phone number. I didn't need to dial it. I knew it by heart. I'd memorized it as a kid the way you memorize emergency numbers before you understand why you need them. My father's number. I stared at the screen longer than necessary, like if I gave it enough time the digits might rearrange themselves into something less ugly. They didn't. I saved the file, took a screenshot, then another showing the metadata. Date created, location, timestamp. Evidence survives better when it's boring. Daniel appeared in the doorway, hair-rumpled eyes already sharp. He took one look at my face and didn't ask what was wrong. You found it, he said. I turned the laptop toward him. He read it silently. Once, then again. His expression didn't explode into anger. It hardened into something precise. That's him, he said. Yes. He leaned back against the counter, crossing his arms. Okay, then this just crossed from family mess into identity misuse. I nodded. They'll call it helping. They always do, he replied. My phone buzzed on the table. I didn't pick it up. Daniel glanced at it. You don't have to. I know, I said. Then I picked it up anyway. Mom, we found some mail of yours. You should come pick it up. Found? Not forwarded? Not forgot to mention. Found. I showed Daniel the message. He exhaled slowly. They knew, he said. I know. I typed back one sentence and nothing more. Please leave my mail unopened. I'll arrange pickup. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Mom, you're overreacting. I set the phone face down. Overreacting. The word my family uses when they realize something is slipping out of their control. An hour later, my lender called. I answered on the second ring. She was calm, professional, the kind of voice that doesn't take sides. This doesn't kill your application, she said after I explained. It pauses it. We'll need the dispute resolved or proof of removal. Pause, not kill. I could work with pause. When I hung up, Daniel handed me a mug of coffee like it was a ceremonial object. You're handling this clean, he said. I've had practice, I replied, just not with credit. The calls started around noon. Not from my parents, from extended family. Aunt Linda left a voicemail. Your mother is heartbroken. A cousin texted, why are you doing this to him? Someone from my mom's church sent a Facebook message. Family is everything. I didn't reply to any of them. I saved the messages instead. Screenshots, timestamps, names. Daniel watched quietly. They're building a chorus. They always do, I said. It makes them feel justified. That afternoon my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered. Emily, a woman asked. Her voice was bright in a way that made my stomach tighten. Yes. This is Dana from HR. Daniel was already sitting up straight. I put it on speaker. I want to reassure you, Dana continued. You're not in trouble. We received a message regarding a potential conflict of interest. Daniel's jaw tightened. Was the message anonymous, I asked. A pause. It came from a personal email address. Of course it did. We've also received follow-up communications, Dana added carefully. We're reviewing those as well. When the call ended, I stared at the wall for a long moment. They're not stopping, I said. Daniel shook his head. No, they're escalating. My phone buzzed again almost immediately. Dad, you're really going to do this? I didn't respond. Another message. Dad, I was trying to protect you. Protect, the final refuge of people who refuse to take responsibility. I opened my notes app and added a new heading. Boundaries. Under it I wrote, no access to my mail, no use of my information, no third-party contact, any further interference handled officially. I didn't send it yet, I just wrote it. Sometimes writing the line is the first act of crossing it. Daniel watched me, eyes steady. They're trying to make you doubt yourself. I looked at him. They've been doing that my whole life. He nodded. Then it's good you're not letting them do it now. That evening my mother finally called again. Video this time. I declined. Then a text. Mom, we need to talk. Your father is devastated. I stared at the screen until the words stopped feeling like language and started feeling like pressure. Then I typed back. We can talk tomorrow, on video, with Daniel present. 3 dots appeared instantly. Mom, why does he need to be there? Because the truth holds better when witnesses are involved. I set the phone down and leaned back in my chair, exhaustion finally catching up to me. Daniel rested a hand on my shoulder. Tomorrow, he said. We do this once. Clean. I nodded. Because this wasn't about proving I was right anymore. It was about making sure they couldn't do this again. We scheduled the video call for the next afternoon. Not because I needed time to prepare what to say, but because I needed everything documented, calm, and impossible to twist later. Daniel set his laptop on the kitchen table and angled the camera so it caught both of us. Neutral background, good lighting, nothing dramatic. This wasn't a confrontation. It was a record. My phone buzzed a few minutes before the call. A text from my mother. Please don't turn this into something bigger than it already is. I didn't reply. At exactly 3 p.m. the screen lit up. My mother's face appeared first, already tense, lips pressed together like she'd rehearsed disappointment. My father sat beside her, arms crossed, jaw set. He didn't look angry, he looked offended. Like I'd violated an unspoken rule. Hi, Mom, I said evenly. She didn't return it. Why is Daniel there? Daniel inclined his head slightly. Hello. I'm here because this situation has crossed into professional and legal territory. My father scoffed. That's ridiculous. I leaned forward just enough to stay in frame. No. What's ridiculous is using my personal information without my consent. My mother inhaled sharply. Emily, no one used anything. Your father was helping. You've always been bad with paperwork. There it was, the rewrite. I didn't raise my voice. The account application lists Dad's phone number as the authorized contact. My father's eyes flicked away for half a second, long enough. That doesn't mean anything, he said. I was listed so I could make sure nothing went wrong. Something did go wrong, I replied. It blocked my VA loan. My mother shook her head. You're blowing this out of proportion. Daniel spoke then, calm, precise. HR has received multiple communications attempting to frame this as a conflict of interest. That's escalation. My father straightened. I never contacted his job. Daniel didn't blink. The messages came from an email associated with your household. They included personal details not available publicly. Silence stretched. My mother's eyes darted between us. This is tearing the family apart. No, I said. This is exposing a problem. My father's voice hardened. So what? You want an apology? I considered that, really considered it. No, I said, I want boundaries. He laughed short and bitter. Boundaries. That's what the internet teaches you kids now. Daniel stayed quiet. This part was mine. Here they are, I said, pulling up my notes. No one in this family has access to my mail. No one uses my information. No one contacts my employer or my fiancé's workplace about me. If it happens again, I handle it officially." My mother leaned forward. "You're threatening us." "I'm stating consequences," I replied. "Those are different." My father's face flushed. "After everything we've done for you." I felt it then, the old pull, the guilt, the pressure to fold. "I didn't ask you to manage my life," I said, "and I'm not apologizing for protecting it." My mother's voice dropped cold now. "Then don't come to us when you need help." I met her gaze. "I don't." The silence after that wasn't explosive, it was stunned. My father stood abruptly, the camera shaking. "This is unbelievable." He reached for the laptop. "Wait," my mother said sharply. Too late. The screen went dark. I sat there for a long moment, hands folded, breathing steady. My heart wasn't racing. It felt clear. Daniel exhaled slowly. "You did exactly what you needed to do." I nodded. "They're not done." "No," he agreed, "but now they know the rules." My phone buzzed almost immediately. "Dad, you've crossed a line." I didn't reply. Then another message. "Mom, we just want peace." I saved it, added it to the folder. That evening I checked my credit alerts again. No new activity, a small relief. Temporary but real. An email from the credit bureau came in later that night confirming receipt of additional documentation. Another from the retailer acknowledging the dispute. Paper trails do that. They move quietly, but they move. Daniel made dinner. Nothing fancy. Pasta, garlic, normalcy. We ate on the couch, the TV on low. Halfway through, my phone buzzed again. Unknown email. Subject line question regarding your relationship. I opened it. "I hope you know your fiancé is involved with an employee." Daniel's jaw tightened. "That's bait," he said. "I know." "Forward it," he added. I did. He sent it to HR with a single line, "Additional anonymous communication. Pattern noted." I set my phone down and leaned back, exhaustion finally settling into my bones. "They're trying to scare me," I said quietly. Daniel nodded, "And it's not working." I thought about my father, about how loud he'd laughed at my ring, about how small he'd looked when he realized the story wasn't his anymore. "I don't need revenge," I said, "I just need distance." Daniel looked at me. "Sometimes that's the same thing." I didn't sleep perfectly that night, but I slept better. The kind of sleep you get when you stop arguing with reality and start working with it. In the morning, a notification waited on my phone. "Credit dispute update available." I smiled just a little. Because for the first time, this wasn't about what my family thought of me. It was about what the system would prove. The update came in on a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of ordinary day that never looks important until it is. I was sitting at my desk with a mug of coffee that had gone cold while I answered emails that didn't matter when my phone buzzed with a notification from my credit monitoring service. Dispute resolved, account removed. I stared at the screen for a full 10 seconds before I let myself breathe. Removed, not paused, not under review, gone. I opened the attachment with hands that didn't shake anymore. The retailer confirmed the account had been opened without my authorization. The payment history was wiped. My score recalculated. Clean. I forwarded the confirmation to my lender with a short message. Issue resolved, documentation attached. Her reply came back within minutes. "Great news, we'll resume processing your VA loan." Resume, not restart, resume. I leaned back in my chair and felt something loosen in my chest that I hadn't realized I'd been holding for years. Not just the tension from the last few weeks, but the older kind. The kind that comes from always waiting for the next shoe to drop when it comes to your family. That evening, Daniel came over with takeout and the kind of quiet smile that meant he already knew. "You got it," he said. "It's gone," I replied, "clean." He nodded, satisfied. "Good." We didn't celebrate. Not really. No champagne, no speeches, just dinner at my small kitchen table and the hum of normal life returning. My phone buzzed once during the meal. Mom. I didn't open it right away. When I finally did, it was short. We didn't realize how serious this was. I read it twice. Not an apology, not accountability, just a statement that kept the responsibility comfortably vague. I typed a response, then deleted it. Then I wrote something else. I need space right now. I'll reach out when I'm ready. I hit send and set the phone face down. Daniel watched me closely. You okay with that? Yes, I said, and I meant it. The calls slowed after that, then stopped. The group texts went quiet. The extended family found other things to talk about. They always do. My father didn't contact me again. Not directly. I heard through my mother that he was hurt and confused and didn't understand how things got so out of hand. I understood perfectly. For the first time in my life, I hadn't rushed in to fix the discomfort. I hadn't apologized to smooth things over. I hadn't accepted blame that wasn't mine just to keep the peace. Peace, I'd learned, isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of boundaries. A week later, the lender called again. Final approval, dates discussed, numbers finalized. After I hung up, I stood in my living room and looked around at the place that had been mine alone for years. Small, clean, temporary. Soon it wouldn't be. Daniel leaned against the doorframe watching me. You did this the right way. I did it the only way that works, I said. I thought back to that backyard. To the laughter. To my father's voice cutting through the noise like it owned the space. Who would ever want to marry you? The answer, it turned out, wasn't just Daniel. It was me. I wanted to marry the version of myself who didn't shrink, who didn't explain, who didn't beg for permission to live her own life. The military taught me discipline, not silence. Discipline is knowing when to stand still and when to move. My family thought control meant access, thought love meant obedience, thought jokes could cover cruelty if they were delivered with a smile. They were wrong. What stayed standing after everything else fell quiet wasn't anger, or revenge, or even vindication. It was clarity. I didn't need to punish anyone. The system handled what the system handles best: facts, paper trails, consequences. All I had to do was stop protecting people who were willing to hurt me to feel powerful. That's the part no one tells you, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fighting back. It's stepping back. If this story stirred something in you, if you've ever been told you were too much for simply protecting your own life, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're listening from. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. And if you want more stories like this, real stories about boundaries, resilience, and quiet strength, subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. We're still telling them, and we're not done yet.